in be so interested about my book, but I want to excuse again all the mistakes that I'm going to do in English. Sorry, it's not my first language. And the second excuse is that I see a few people here that heard me yesterday, and I'm afraid that they will be boring to hear it again. I will try to change a lot of things, okay? That the people that were yesterday will not be too much tired with my explanation, description of the Jewish non-people. Now, as Bertel told you, I'm teaching history in the Tel Aviv University. Jewish history is not my field. It's a long time that I was working about the natives in France, for example, and also natives in Germany. In one day I decided to question the natives in Israel, I mean the Jewish in Israel. And this is the book, this is a product of my, my questioning the Jewish present in the history. Now, I wrote the book after I got the full professorship, because I was sure that if I will write it before it, there were not any chance to become a full professor. Not only in Tel Aviv, I believe also in NYU it wasn't sure that I could be. It's not a joke. Now, I wrote the book after I understood that nobody can touch me really in academic point of view. Now, it wasn't my field. Then at the beginning, I didn't know exactly what I'm going to do. There were a few questions, a few things that bothered me a lot as a historian of other fields. I have to explain you that I'm not a historian of the Jewish people, because we have in the Tel Aviv University a special department of Jewish history. I belong to the Department of General History that is occupying with all the goys, but not about the Jewish. I have not any right to direct somebody in thesis, to write scientific articles or book about Jewishness. Why? Because I don't belong to the Department of Jewish History. By the way, the Department of Jewish History, a little department with 12 students, I think, this year. We have 120. This department, all of the professors there are Zionist professors. It's very natural. By the way, it's all the universities in Israel has two departments separately, completely separate. Okay? Then it's not my subject, it's not my field, it's not my right to write about Jewish history. I decided to write it because, you see, I thought that Jewish history is something very, very interesting. Very interesting. In the way people write about it, I didn't like. But I don't hide that I decided to write this book also because I am an Israeli citizen that living in Israel in the beginning of the 2000 years, in seeing around me a kind of, how we call it, images of the past. And I'm speaking now like as a citizen, images of the past that worried me a lot. For example, to explain it clearly, I believe that you know more or less, at least a part of you, that you are not a direct descendant of the Anglo-Saxon. You know it? In France, for example, people know today, the beginning of 2000 year, that they are not direct descendants of the Gauls. You see? But 100 years ago, most of the Americans believed that they are the direct descendant of the Anglo-Saxon that came here, you know, long time ago. Now, this is very interesting, between Israelis, 95% or even more are sure that they are the direct descendant of the people of the Bible. But it's not only the Israelis. I think that the Jew, most of the Jews in the world, at least in the Western world, are sure also that they are the direct descendant of the old Hebrew. even in this room, I believe, there are people that more or less think that they are, you know, the children, not of God, but of the Bible, no? I started to write the book because I have questions around the concept like what is a people, what is a nation, what is nationalism, what is a nation state, and other things. By the way, the first chapter I'm dealing with this concept. Then if somebody is starting to read the book, you can jump on this chapter. It's the most abstract, most difficult, and I didn't succeed in this chapter really to be simple as the rest of the book. Okay? Don't be afraid, this chapter is difficult, jump on it, and then it becomes much more narrative, you see, it will take you forward. Now, starting with a simple thing, with a concept like people. Yes? It's not a scientific term. But what we mean usually when we say American people. Most of you belong to the American people? Yes, no? No, you come from Israel. No.
New York is my country.
Okay. No, it's you know, it's very interesting. The people started to decompose in some way in the beginning of the new millennium. But you know, using the word American people, French people, Italian people, see, it's useful. What we are meaning by saying Italian people? We are speaking about a group of human beings that are speaking the same language, more or less, has the same way of life, more or less, are eating the same food, more or less, have the same music, more or less, etc., etc., etc. Practice a norm, culturally practice a norm, common to this society that we call Italian people. If it's true to use Italian people, French people, German people, American people, how can I use the word Jewish people? You understand me? Because, you see, if I have a cat and a dog, I cannot start to call the cat dog. You agree with me? Yes. Because if I would call the cat dog and the dog dog, I didn't know who to call. No, it's not so simple. You have to understand. Jewish people, it means what? They don't have a language common to all. They are not speaking the same language. You see, I'm from Jewish origin. I imagine that there are other people here from Jewish origin, not? A lot of you. Can I speak in Hebrew now? You know, I'm very good in Hebrew, really. At least, can I speak in Yiddish? Not at, no, okay. I have to speak your language, okay? English. It was an option once when I was young, you see? I believe that we can arrive to it. Why Jewish people? Not a language, not a food. They are not eating the same food, you see? By the way, in Israel we are eating hummus. You know what is hummus? I went in London to a restaurant, an Israeli restaurant, and I see hummus falafel, but it's not really Jewish. We steal it from the Palestinians like we stole the land. You know it. Now, not food, not language, maybe music. Yes, but the Doors music is not a Jewish music. I like the Doors, the Beatles. Unfortunately, it's not Jewish, okay? For the moment. Now, what will we mean, Jewish people? If it's not a secular culture common to the Jew, it's difficult to speak in modern terms about a people. Don't forget that before the modernity, the word people was applied to a lot of things, quite differently than they use today. All the Middle Ages, the word people was applied to religious group, like the Christian people. You heard about it? God's people in England. Very common to speak about God's people. The Englishmen were the God's people, you know? Peuple de Dieu for the French. I mean, the word people design religious group. In the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, people has other connotation. But not the modern connotation. You understand me? Then why Jewish people? There is other reason why to use the word Jewish people. This deep belief that the Jewish came from the same origin. They came from where? From Palestine, no? 2,000 years ago, the Romans expelled the Jewish from Palestine. And they started to wander in the world, create a diaspora, arriving to Moscow, making a U-turn, return to their land in Palestine, Israel. This is the kind of way that I studied history from the beginning till the last year. 10 years ago, I believed that the Jew, me, as a Jew, I'm a descendant of these people that were exiled 2,000 years ago. Everybody in Israel believed it, and I think also here, people more or less thinking that the Jews were exiled 2,000 years ago, no? And this has more or less, not a pure race, but more or less they are from the same, ethnos, okay? I started to write the book after thinking about concept from the beginning. I think that the Jewish have not exactly the same origin, and I didn't understand why I have to continue to use the word Jewish people. And I thought that Jewishness is a religion, first of all, a very important religion in the Western world. When I started to speak with my students about it, it wasn't so simple. But we are a Jewish people. How come? The first basic in the 19th century to create a Jewish people, the first basic was the Bible. I noticed that the first part of the 19th century, Jewish first historians in the modernity in the 19th century consider Jew as religious community. Only in the second round of the 19th century appeared the first historians to use Jewish people in a modern sense. It means the question when the Jewish people was invented, it's a long time ago, 140 years. It's a long time, no? 140 years that the Jewish people was invented. By the way, the French people, it was 200. The German people is 250. But it's not bad, 230, 240 years that the Jewish people exist as a concept. Now, in the modernity, to create nations, intellectuals invented to the past people. Understand? To invent a French nation, it was necessary, to create a French nation, it was necessary to invent a French people till the beginning of the time, till de Gaulle or till Clovis. For 100 years, little Frenchmen studied that they are the right descendant of the Gauls. Nos ancêtres les Gaulois was the first sentence in a lot of books, history books in the schools. Nos ancêtres les Gaulois, notre ancestor les Gaulois. Jews started to write the history of the Jew from the Bible. My first chapter, after the theoretical chapter, is dealing the way that these intellectuals of the national intellectuals of the second half of the 19th century took the Bible as a basic to tell the history of the Jew as a people. And it was a new thing to do. You have to know that the Bible, that is not a book, it's a library, was not read by Jew. Everybody believes that the Bible is the book of the Jews, no? More or less? The first testament, not the second one. But do you know the Jewish in their yeshivas, in their rabbinic schools, didn't study the Bible. They didn't read the Bible. Jewish didn't read the Bible. They have no the right to read the Bible. Who read the Bible before the modern times? It was a very, very important Jewish sect that the name was Karaite. You know what is Karaite? Karaite. I think that in English we're saying Karaite, no? Karaitis. Karaitis is a very important Jewish sect. I don't know if to call it Jewish sect, monotheistic sect in Jerusalem, very, very strong. And they read the Bible as the first book of their identity. The second group that read the Bible before modernity was, well, who? Huh? Protestant. They jumped on the Bible as the beginning of their religion, because they are the really children of Israel, you know, the Protestant. You know it. I believe that there are people here, really children of Israel from Protestant origin, no? I don't see very clear, but I believe. I don't know how to define somebody that is a real Protestant. Even a Jew, I don't arrive to identify it immediately. Now, the Protestant were the second group that read seriously the Bible. The third one was the Zionist. In the second half of the 19th century, at least from the end of this century, Zionists started to read the book not as a theological book, but as a historical book. You see, all my education passed in Israel. When I was 7 years old, I studied the Bible in a secular school, not in a religious school. I studied the Bible as what? As a history of my people, the Jewish people. You can imagine it, from 7 years old till the degree of the high school in the end, in 18, everybody in Israel is studying every week, before the English language, before mathematics, before history. It is the Bible. By the way, in last years, they decided to start it in the first class, to be sure that people will know that they belong to the Jewish people. A month ago, I read that they thinking to put the Bible in the kindergarten. They don't know to read, but we can read before them who they are. You understand? It's very important. Especially in this world that national identity, national culture started to be decomposed. Then it's much more sure to read the Bible to children in the kindergarten. It's not a joke, by the way. They didn't decide yet if to do it in the kindergarten or not, but it's very near to happen. Now, the Bible became the basic of the history of the Jew. In the 90s, more or less 20 years ago, Israeli archaeologist. This is a New York accent. I have an Israeli accent in English. Any archaeologist, okay? Israeli archaeologists, the good Zionists, started to discover that a lot of things in the Bible, most of the things in the Bible, are legend and has not a real historical basic. I will not come in too much, but because if I'm telling all the book, you will not buy it. By the way, you can wait to the paperback, no? Not to, okay. I'm used to buy always paperback. No, but I'm sorry that I said it. Anyway, Israeli diggers of the land of Israel discover that the exodus, the famous exodus of the Jew, exodus of the Jew, going out from Egypt, didn't happen. The exodus didn't happen. It's terrible, no? You know why it's terrible? Very difficult for everybody? There is Pesach. You know what is Pesach? In this holiday, very important Jewish holiday, you can imagine that Exodus didn't exist. Why to make this holiday in Pesach? Now, not only the Exodus, by the way, there is a lot of reasons that were proved the Exodus couldn't be. In my book, I come into details, but you have to understand the Exodus supposed to be in the 13th cycle before Jesus Christ. Okay? 13. In that time, the Egyptian Empire exists also in Canaan. Then Moses took out the Jew from Egypt to bring them back to Egypt, because Canaan was Egypt. You understand that? The David and Solomon kingdom didn't exist. It was a little teeny kingdom around Jerusalem of David, maybe. But it's true that it wasn't a kingdom unifying Israel and Judah together, great one, like it's described in the Bible, that is telling in the Bible. Anyway, the Bible lost a lot of credibility because of our archaeology in Israel. I started the book trying to confront the all the new document about the Bible with the Zionism, the way that they constructed the Jewish national history. And I wanted to finish with it, to make a little book about it. And I remember the day that I started to become interested in another chapter, very important, of constructing the national consciousness or national memory of the Jew, and especially of the Israelis. It was the exile. I'm sure that a lot of people sitting here are sure the Jews were exiled from Palestine after the revolt of 70, after the destruction of the Second Temple. No? Jews were exiled from this. Everybody knows it in Israel, in New York, especially in New York. No? Sorry? You know, some people say that the exile happened in 70. The others say that the exile started in 135 in the revolt of Bar Kokhba. Now, I started to dig a little bit the subject. And I discovered, to make it simple, because I see that there are people here that are interested about the subject and knows about the subject. The Jewish didn't, the Romans didn't exile the Jewish from Judah. Now, you doubt about it. No? You think that the Jewish were exiled, no? Now, it's very interesting that I was looking for books, research books, that are speaking about the exile of the Jew. In the first century after Jesus Christ, I didn't find even one book. You can imagine it? One of the most important event in the Jewish history didn't happen. The Romans didn't expel Jew from Judah. How come? How come? Not in 70, not in 135. No, I don't ask you. I'm happy that you know something about it. Then most Jews were dead, but not exiled. Okay. Most Jews were dead, but not exiled. Then exile didn't happen. They died. Sorry.
Can you die in exile?
Sorry?
Can you die in exile? Let's let him continue.
Now, then I repeat, no exile, even one book, is not speaking about the exile of the Jew from Judah. Now, in the population, in the collective memory, even on our money in the pocket, it's written that we were exiled. We, the Jews, were exiled from Judah. You know, we have the 50 shekels. It's not $50, it's $10, I think, no? More or less. Our $10, there is the inscription of Agnon saying that we were exiled from Jerusalem, from Judah, by the Roman, by Titus. and everybody in Israel is sure that we were exiled from Judah. In Rome, there is a gate that you see there, the menorah, the menorah, with people holding the menorah. When I was a child, in my textbook, it was written, in this gate in Rome, you see Jewish holding the menorah and going out to the exile. 3 months ago, our Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, went to Rome to meet his friend Berlusconi, a good friend, by the way. After meeting Berlusconi and all the girlfriends and all this, he came to the gate. No, it's not a joke. He came to the gate. He took a photo with the gate like this, and it was written in the journals that he is standing near the gate that showed that the Jewish people were exiled from Israel, from the land. Now, one of the things that I didn't notice when I was a child, that the guys that holding the menorah don't have beards. And they have a very short robes. You know, like here, it was very, very fashioned in the Roman soldiers. Very nice robes and without beard. The Jewish has a beard, even in that time. So only the Romans didn't have a beard. I am sure that Bibi Netanyahu in the photo didn't think about it. That the photo is about Roman soldiers taking the thing that they robbed from the temple and going it to Rome. Jewish were not expelled. A lot of them were killed. There is not numbers, but we know that most of the historians of the antiquity, exaggerate with numbers. I try to show it. I will not come into the problem. You can put away 1 0 in all numbers of the all the historians of the old time. 1 0. No, mister, not Shoah after the revolt. You know why? Because 65 years after the revolt of Bar Kokhba, Judah became the place, the basic of one of the achievements, the most important achievements of the Jewish tradition, of Jewish, ideologically, a Jewish religion. I'm speaking about the Mishnah. You heard about the Mishnah? A part of you. Mishnah. Before the Talmud. Mishnah, not Mishnah. The Mishnah. It was written 200 years. 65 years after the Bar Kokhba. One of the most achievements of Jewishness was produced in Judah. Okay? And there is a lot of material today to show that even if the revolt was very, very difficult of Bar Kokhba, this fanatical revolt of Bar Kokhba, very quickly, in one generation, the country became flourished even before. That if the Jews didn't exile, what happened? 2 questions were put before me. What happened with the population class? What happened with the Jew? Because they were not exiled, first of all. And how come there are so many Jews in the world? You understand me? Now, what happened with the Jewish in Judah? In Palestine, because we have to say Palestine after the Bar Kokhba revolt. What happened with the Jewish in Palestine after the revolt? What happened with the Jewish during all these years? How come that the Jewish disappeared from Palestine? You have an idea? I have. I started to look, and I found in the writings of the first Zionists the answer. You don't know, I imagine, a lot about the first Zionists. For example, Israel Belkind. He's the first guy, before Herzl, that has a Zionist arrived to Palestine. Israel Belkind. You don't know the name. But you know David Ben-Gurion? No? The young don't know who is David Ben-Gurion? David Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion. No, in New York it's David Ben-Gurion. No? You know him. David Ben-Gurion, with his friend Yitzhak Ben-Tzvi, wrote a book, a very important book about Palestine in 1919. By the way, it's very astonishing that they wrote it here in New York. They were exiled, by the way, by the Turk. And they wrote a fantastic book about Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. They are the first one that started to use in modernity the word Eretz Israel. Because all the Zionists call it Palestina, you know. In this book, they gave the answer that I was looking for. They knew, and they write, it's a mistake to think that the Jews were exiled. The Jews stay in place like all the peasants in the world. And the peasants in Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, are the direct descendant of the old Jew. If you don't believe me, buy the book. I quote Ben-Gurion, I quote Ben-Tzvi, I quote Belkin to show at least till 1929 the most important Zionists believe that the Arabs there, the natives, are the real descendants of the old Jew. Astonishing, no? Bizarre, we say in French. You see, they try to make the picture of the Israeli people differently than later. They were a minority as settlers, and they wanted to recuperate the Palestinians as a part of the Jewish people. They spoke, and they write about the Arabs in Palestine as a part of their flesh and blood. I mean, they had a concept that we need a same origin to become a people, but they consider the Arabs in Palestine as a part of their flesh and blood. Till the first Arab revolt in 1929. Suddenly they discovered that the natives don't want to be Jew. There was a problem. By the way, I'm thinking that it's pity. Huh? If they accepted to be a Jew, it was differently now. Huh? We could have as Prime Minister Azmi Bishara, maybe, I don't know. Or Ismail Haniyeh, the Prime Minister of Israel, who knows? Anyway, when I tried to expose this idea before a lot of Arabs, Palestinians, they didn't like the idea that they are the direct descendant of the Jew. Especially the Hamasnik. Huh? It's not a joke, by the way. They didn't accept it so well. Anyway, I think that Ben-Gurion was right. It's one of the points that I accept his ideas. I mean, he exaggerated a little bit because he wasn't a serious historian. I don't think that the Palestinians are the direct descendant of the old Jew. You know why? Because every conqueror passed there in this area and left his seeds in the place. They are mixed like most of the peoples in the world. I try to convince them that they will not start with the mythology, national mythology, that they are the real Jew. It will make a lot of problems, you see, diplomatically. And it's fantastic. You can imagine to write a script about this? Yes. A family of Hamas discovered by the DNA, for example, that they are the old Jew. Now, the second question was, if the Jewish were not expelled. By the way, I think that the Palestinians are not the direct descendant of the old Hebrew, but I think that the chance that the Palestinian in Hebron will be a descendant of the old Jew, it's 1,000 times more than me. I mean, I think that the chance that he is a descendant of Palestinians is much more than most of us here. Jewish and not Jewish. Now, what happened? In the beginning of the 7th century, the Arabs arrived to Palestine. Jewish and Palestine exist till this time as a majority, more or less. A lot of them become Christian. but not all the population. It was a resistance, a very strong resistance to become Christian. You know why? Because a lot of people has a problem with the Son of God. You know, it's a kind of coupure. You know, Christianity and Jewishness are very far from the theological point of view. It was very difficult to admit that the grace was descendant to the land, to the earth. You understand me? It was very difficult for Jews to become Christians. But with the Islam, coming the Islam, it was a happiness. This is the reason, for example, that I cannot support now, when I'm living in Paris a little bit, to hear notre civilisation judo-chrétien. You know, today everybody is speaking in Europe, we are Judo-Christians. You hear them? Very popular. I don't understand. No, it's a very nice formula, but I read that they didn't use it, the French one, in the 40s. It was nice, 1940, I mean, to become a Judeo-Christian before the Germans. Anyway, to say Judo-Islamic is much more logic, you understand? A prophet came from the desert and said that he is the continuation of the other prophet. He is not the son of the God. They opened the Jerusalem, the holy city of the Jewish, before the Jew. You understand? The first time that the Jew could come into the holy city was with the Islam conquest. Not only this. You see, the first step of the conquest of the Islam, every guy that was converted to Islam was free of taxes. You heard about it?
Was what?
Was free of taxes. Taxes.
Oh, free of
He didn't have to pay taxes if he was converted to Islam. You can imagine it? They are coming. Tomorrow they will come to New York. They propose every person, every guy that was except to be converted to Islam will be free of taxes. How many New Yorkers will accept the Islam? Thinking 76. People become Islamic without knowing that they are changing religion. I'm speaking about peasant. In this way, they become, this peasant, after 1,000 years, the Palestinian, more or less. Now, what happened with the rest of the world? And this is important. Now, everybody of us, in Me Too, 8 years ago, I was sure that Judaism is a kind of closed religion. They don't try to proselyte other people. No? You don't try to proselyte other people? No. No. You are seeking the Judaism in opposition to the Islam or the Christianity is not a proselyte religion. It's not true. From 200 years before Jesus Christ, when the first time in my theory monotheism arrived to power in the Western world, I'm speaking about the Maccabean, one of the first things that this authority, new authority of the Maccabean after the revolt of Maccabean, one of the first things that they are doing is what? To convert by force all their neighbors. They were not the last monotheists that tried to convert by force, but they were the first one. And they convert a lot of people around them, and this is the reason that Horus became the king of Judah in the end. You know who is Horus? How we call it? Herodes. Herod. American guy. Herod. Okay. We call him Horus. Sorry that I changed the name. didn't know that he is living in New York. Anyway, the last Edomic king, it's a result of forced conversion that started in Judah 200 years before Jesus came, and it continued. Jewishness was the first monotheism that convert people. And they convert a lot of people in the Roman world. They succeeded to convert families, slaves, because every converted family forced the slaves to be converted. In Judaism started to spread in all the Mediterranean. But not only private families, not only slaves, kingdoms become converted. The first kingdom in the first century that were converted, it was in Babylon. Once I thought the Jewish of Iraq are the authentic Jew of Palestine, because the first exile. I was sure, I have a lot of respect to them because of it. And suddenly I discovered it was a kingdom that was converted in this area. It's called in Hebrew Hadayev. How you call it in English? Hadayev. Adbayan, I think. You don't know. You don't know Jewish history. And they removed the kingdom. By the way, in the revolt of 70, they sent people to fight with the Judean in Judah. It's the first kingdom, but not the last Jewish kingdom. In the 5th century, you know more or less where is Yemen? Yemen? It exists there a very strong Jewish kingdom that lasts more than a Maccabean kingdom. Nobody in Israel today don't know about this kingdom that lasts 150 years, more or less. You can imagine? We love history, we, the Jew, the Israelis. We don't know, we don't teach about the Jewish kingdom in the 5th century. You know the Jewish Yemenite? The girls are beautiful, no? Handsome, no? Especially the hairs. How we call it? Curly hairs. It's very nice. I like it very much personally. The hairs of my student from the Yemenite origin. But this hair didn't come from the wind of the Red Sea. You understand? The third kingdom was in North Africa, but Judaism became very, very popular in North Africa. It started with the Phoenician, it's continued with the Berber. And we, the Jew, was the last fighter against the invasion of the Arabs of North Africa. Who is new? Us, the Jew. It was a queen, a very important queen. The name of this queen was Da'iyya el-Kaina. She was the head of this military force that tried to resist in the name of Judaism against the Arabs that came to North Africa. Most of the Jews that came from North Africa are the Berbers. They don't like the idea. Not only this, I think that the invasion of Spain in 711, the invasion of Spain was made by a Jewish barbarian with Muslim barbarian, and this is the reason that so many Jews started, Jewish communities started to develop in Spain in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th centuries. From the beginning, it was a Jewish Muslim force that invaded Spain in the beginning of the 8th century. The last chapter to discover from where Jews came is the case of Khazaria. 80% of the Jews in the beginning of the 20th century came from East Europe. Okay? More or less, 80%. How come? Why in this area there were so many Jews in the beginning of the 20th century? How come? The Zionist historiography tried to tell us that, you know, the Romans took the Jew from Judah, put them in Roma, they went up to Germany, they make a turn and to arrive to Poland. More or less, this is the story. And I asked myself, how come that there are so many Jews in Poland, Ukraine, and Russia? The only explanation can be the Khazaria case. I am speaking about a very, very important kingdom that started more or less to be Jew in the 80th century. The 80th century. 8th. Okay, sorry, I started to be tired. 8th century after Jesus Christ, this very, very large kingdom became Jew. What is the meaning of Jew? That a lot of people become Jew under the rule of the Khazarian.
Where was it?
It was between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. You say Caspian Sea?
Yeah.
Today, but it was, the name of this sea was Khazarian Sea. In the Middle Ages, the name was Khazarian, after us. By the way, sometimes I'm joking with my student and tell them, Jerusalem, you know, after the Bible, you will agree with me, was not built by Jews. You know. By whom? By the Yevusi. Jewish, not Jewish, the children of Israel invaded Jerusalem. It was not built by Jews. But maybe it's us, the Jew of the Europe, the last Eastern Europe, that built Kiev. Kiev started to become a city under the rule of the Khazarian. Then if we didn't build Jerusalem, at least we have Kiev. Think about it, it's fantastic. I don't give proposal to try to unify Kiev with Israel. It will make the conflict much more complicated. But it's us that established Kiev. Till now, they have a gate, Khazarian gate, they have a quarter, a Jewish quarter in Kiev. By the way, the Soviet didn't like the idea that we build Kiev. Now, you know, till more or less the 60s of the last century, most of the Zionist historians accept the thesis that this massive presence of Jew in the Europe, Eastern Europe, came from the Khazarian areas. They only put forward also that it was Jewish from Eretz Israel that arrived to Khazaria. You understand? My last chapter, because I passed the time that you gave me, the last chapter, I'm leaving the, how we say, the long time of history and try to concentrate about Zionism, political Zionism, modern times, and also I try to analyze the character of the Israeli state. I make it clear. Jewish nationalism, I mean Zionism, was born in the areas that German nationalism was born, Polish nationalism was born, and they kept like the German nationalism till the 20th century, like the Polish nationalism till the 20th century.
About when?
More or less the second part of the 19th century.
Zionism was born in the second part of the 19th century.
Yeah. I'm speaking about not the movement. For the movement we have a date. But for the birth of ideas, of Zionist ideas, you have not one date. You understand me? But if you